What's up guys, it's Minx. In the last video, we set up the first part of our level designer where we can actually drag items into the world. In this video, we're going to be able to place them down and we're going to make it so it actually creates the save file. So we're going to add a little save button over here on the right side. So we're going to do all that in this video. We're not going to load from the save file this time. I can confirm that loading from a save file will work, or at least loading the serialized object into our object will work. So there's no issue there. Um, but let's go ahead and get started. So let's close out of this. And the first thing I think I want to do today is fix our game save manager because there's a couple issues that I missed again from not testing it when we originally wrote it. We got it pretty close, but we missed a couple things, or I missed a couple things. So firstly, we got to change this environment.specialfolder.application data. So what this does is it essentially adds roaming onto the end of what we got, or end of the directory of our application. So it means it's pointing to wherever the exe that this runs for debug mode it does, plus /roaming, which doesn't really work. So what we're going to do is change this to environment.getFolderPath, and then inside of this parentheses we put what we just had. So environment.specialfolder.application data. So this will do that, and then this will change over to the actual roaming folder. So that's great. The next thing we want to do is actually set up a constructor. So we create these files when we say create file. However, if roaming / game with no engine doesn't exist, or wherever we set it, doesn't exist, then it won't work. It will create a file if the folder it's trying to create and exists. It doesn't like create the folder for us. So what I like to do is we could say, create save, create a directory before we create the save if it doesn't exist, or we can say public game save manager. And when we create this, it's like, okay, we're about to save something. Let's make sure we have this set up automatically no matter what. So we can say system.io.directory.create directory base location. It's already got this set up for me. And this will do it. So if you don't have it, make sure you have system.io added. Let me see here. Might want to take this a little step further. Folder. So let's check. Okay. So what we're going to do is say if directory dot exists. So if it doesn't exist and the directory we want to pass in is base location. Can you not? There we go. So if the directory doesn't exist, we go ahead and create it with this. And in fact, I think we can get rid of system.io and just say directory. There we go, because we've got system.io added. So what this is saying is if base location doesn't exist, go ahead and create it. On my system, it does actually exist right now. If I go to %appdata % and bring this over to game with no engine, it exists, so we can delete it. I'll delete it so we can test if it works when we go ahead and create this. So we'll come back to that. That's the first thing. There's one, it's technically two, but one other thing. So I could have swore I had done it, but maybe I deleted it at some point. We don't break when we create the file. So what it'll do right now is it'll create all 0 through 19, so all 20 of our things. So first thing we want to do is add a break here. But one other thing that's an issue is when we create a save file, what it's doing is it creates it, but it retains a handle. So typically if we create a save file, we want to save level to that file we just created very soon after. And we still have a handle on it with file.create because this returns a file stream. So what we can say is we can just say var save file equals file.create. And then we can say save file after we get the information .dispose. So dispose will essentially release that handle for us. It says releases all resources used by the stream. This way, when we go to save the level to the file, it doesn't toss us an error, as well as we break so we don't create 20 separate files. So I believe that's all the change. That is all the changes we need for this. Otherwise, it'll still work very similar to how it was. This just prevents it from having issues. So let's save this, and let's move over to placeable. Yeah, let's do placeable first. So with placeable, there's a couple things I want to do. So I was thinking about adding it to like the GUI list, but that didn't really seem like a good idea. It shouldn't be being handled like a GUI because it's not. So of course it's staying as an iDynamic, but we do need to check if the mouse is over it and adjust accordingly. So what I want to do is we're just going to make it for all placeables. So we'll just do a public bool is mouse over. And this isn't even something we're checking every frame. When a click happens, we're going to check. If a click doesn't happen, because we don't need to do like a hover. If you want to do a hover, you can check every frame. I'm not going to do a hover. So when we click, it's like, hey, is the mouse over this? No? All right, don't do anything. If it is, then it's like, okay. So it's very similar to the other one. We could probably actually go over to our, I think it's in menu, right? It would be GUI menu. And we can actually copy this part over. We don't really need the else because, in fact, we could remove the else on this and just say return false. Because it'll return true if it's true, and then if it doesn't return true, we don't need to say else do this. It'll just move into return false. But moving back over to placeable, we'll do the same thing for return false outside of here, but we need to fix this stuff. So first things first, and I should have done this on the other one, but this.game.mouse screen location.x instead of the other one, which we calculated it. So we can actually just, and I'm going to do the same thing for these two and just replace it with y. Get out of here. Say, okay, and then for this would be this.position.x. And then this would be this.position.y. And then instead of this would be this dot scale, not snap, scale.x. And then this dot scale.y. There we go. So same thing. It's just how we reference things are a little different because we're not doing the same. We're not referencing interface. We're referencing this exact object. So it's the mouse location, just to determine if the mouse is hovering over it. The other thing I want to do is add another bool. So that's technically a bool that'll just return true or false when we call the method. However, I also want a public bool here. Public bool is active equals, and we'll actually not set it to equal anything here. I want to add this as a parameter. So we'll say is active. Oh, a bool is active. And I think we want it to be false by default and set it to true, or do we want it to be true? No, we'll set it to true by default. So when you spawn one, if you don't tell it to be true or not, it'll be true. And then we can kind of toss this anywhere. We can say, and actually make this capitalized, is active with a capital I, is active equals is active. So what I want to do is say, if we are active, because this way we don't have to do a lot of extra work. We just stop assigning it to the mouse location. If is active, then we adjust according. So we say, if we are active, move it to the mouse location. The only thing left to do is say, hey, are we active? Or well, let's say, hey, the mouse clicked. How do we handle that? So let's move down here. And we're going to say public void handle click. And we'll say, if we are active, so if is active, all we need to do is say is active is equal to false. So that means if this is the object we're moving around and we click, regardless of if we miss, because it's possible that we miss, very unlikely, but it could be a pixel off, then we say false, right? So that goes for also handling any GUI stuff or anything like that. So it's kind of goofy because we don't really have like a focus system where if you're focused on a GUI, you're not handling the game stuff. Not really interested in that. That's kind of getting beyond our scope here. But if we are not active, what do we want to do? Well, we want to say if is mouse over, because it's going to check this every time we click if this object exists. So if is mouse over is active equals true. Okay, so how do we send the click message through? Because we don't really register as a GUI like that's handling clicks or anything. This is just like its own thing. So we got to make a couple adjustments to a few things. So if I remember correctly, we're in menu. Yep. Okay. So this is a small adjustment. We're going to make handle click virtual so we can override it. This means it won't affect the behavior of default menus that don't override it. It'll do nothing there to hurt. This will still do what it's supposed to do. We don't have to mess with it. Um, and honestly, it probably should have been made virtual anyway because we were, just like now, we're probably going to override it, and we did. So we do that. We're going to go back to our game window, or not our game window, excuse me, game menus. And the designer menu is going to be the only one that we have right now that overrides it. So we're just going to do a public override void handle click. And we want to handle click last, and I'll explain why in a moment. But how do we send it to the placeable? We don't have a reference to the placeable because we just created a new one. So we need to be able to access it. And as a result, we're going to go ahead and do a list of placeables for this. I know we talked about this in the last video. I didn't want to put stuff like this here. And we'll probably move it at some point. And then, the menu might call back to the designer object. I'm not sure how we're going to go about it, but for now, we'll just do this. And I don't feel like initializing elsewhere, so we'll just initialize it here. Equals new list placeable. So all this is doing is saying, or creating the list variable and then initializing it here instead of waiting till we, instead of doing it down here. So now instead of just saying new placeable, we say placeables dot add, and then we add this. Get rid of that, cut this out, and paste it into the add. So this will reference it, and we don't have like a equals placeable, but we have the placeables list. So we can just say for each placeable, we'll say placeable and placeables, placeable dot handle click. Okay, so now this will send that message through for us without affecting anything else that would be impacting it, and gives us the ability to control that for in the future for other things. So I think that's it for actually like placing them down. So the reason we call this first. Actually, do we call this first? I got this backwards. I think, all right. Yeah, we don't do base handle click first. So if we were to handle base.handle click, so if we go back to menu, so it would spawn the object, and then this would handle click on that object immediately, or this would handle click on that object immediately. So based on how our placeable works, it would immediately just freeze the placeable on the screen, and then we'd have to click on it again to move it around. And I can confirm this is true because when I originally made this, this was first because it starts off at the top of the method, and it did that. So now if we actually hit start, as long as we didn't miss anything, it's very possible. We hit play, create level, we come down here so we can see what we're doing. Boop. There we go. Yeah, sometimes it's a little slow, but we got things snapping to our grid very nicely. So that's very cool. So the next thing I want to do is save this. So let's create a save button, and then we'll kind of create a save function that'll save and return us to the main menu. So this is kind of rough because we can only do one at a time. So I wouldn't worry about like designing anything right now until we can save it, because otherwise your progress is just going to be lost every single time. And it's, you're putting a lot of time into something it's just going to get lost at the moment because we haven't created anything. So don't worry about creating anything just yet. So let's do our little save button. I decided to kind of like attach it to the side of the little thing at the bottom, whatever you would call it, the border. So it'll kind of follow along with that. So let's go ahead and copy these two lines because it's going to be very close, but a little different. So I want the X to be attached to the right side of this border. So firstly, let's get rid of anything inside of this vector too, the X and the Y. You got to be careful because this thing loves to fuck with me. Yeah, it's already done it. All right, I'll just take us piece by piece because of how long this is. Okay. So here's the XY, or here's the XY, here's the width and height. And we'll just replace this with new vector 2 because we're going to be redoing these. Okay, so the x, how do we want the x to be calculated? We want to calculate the x as the x of our border plus, and I'll put a comma here for the so we know we're kind of stopping. So we do plus, and then we take the width. I hate that so much. The width of the border plus width of border, and then the y is going to be it should just be the same as border y because it's going to be aligned with the top of it. So we take this. Stop doing that. Great, I don't even know what I'm grabbing. Here it is. Okay, I was grabbing the right thing. So that would be our xy. Now width and height can be pretty much the same as the other one. So width can be 80 and height can be the same as the shoot. Yeah, here we are. Looks like I may have made a mistake with my commas. We'll see. Oh, I have an extra param. All right, get rid of this one. That's my bad. The width and height are in the bottom row. So okay, so I don't even need to redo that. So because I didn't get rid of it, I just got rid of the XY. So we just want to get rid of this minus 10 because if I'm not mistaken, the thing here is yeah. So it'll be the same height. So do that however you want. This is just how I design it. So if I want to change these colors though. So I want to do like we'll do royal blue. That's what I like. And then I think there's like a light steel blue. I think it's kind of really light, but it's okay. I think that's fine. And we'll leave it at spawn object for now. I'll create the save function after. There we go. It's still green according to the text, but otherwise this is good. Kind of attached to the side of it. That's fine. So let's go ahead and fix that. We'll say save and exit. And we're gonna say maybe we'll put this above handle click. Handle click should be at the bottom. We'll put our button functions right next to each other. Private void save level. Okay. So we'll change this over to save level. And I want to make sure save and exit looks good, so I'll just look real quick. Save and exit. I mean, I guess it's about as good as it gets, so that's fine. So save level, what do we need to do? So create level object. Add level contents. Add created level contents to that level object. Create save file. Save level object to file. Return to main menu. That's kind of our path that we're taking here. So creating level object, fairly simple. Say level, created level equals new level. Adding it. So to add things, we have a list of placeables. This is another reason why I did this, and this is actually makes things easier. For each placeable, and placeables, say created level dot level contents dot add placeable dot my level block. Did I? Placeable. My level block. Oh, did I? Is it because I might have goofed up typing it in. We had. Oh, I might have done capital placeable dot my level block. There it is. Okay. There we go. So we just add the my level block of each placeable that we've placed. Keep in mind, when we're loading the test level, those objects that are created are not included in this list. This is a separate level. This is like separate from any template or anything. I'm not sure, like, we could probably grab, oh, because dynamic is dynamic and these walls are added to the dynamic list. There's no real easy way for us to do it with how we designed everything. Not that I care too much. We could probably do it like when we load the level, it's like, hey, create this, pass through this created level object and toss it in and then use this and then just add the new things to it or something. I'm not sure. Uh, I'm not too worried about it right now. So creating a save file. So the next thing to do to create a save file, because we didn't do anything statically, we did everything as a we created an instance. So just create an instance of game save manager, and I'm just gonna call it save equals new game save manager, and then string save file equals save.create save. And this, because remember, create save returns a string for the file that we created. And then we say save.save level2 file. And we need to pass in our save file that we just created and then the level that we just made. So created level. Perfect. So we've already set everything up. This is why we spent a lot of time in the previous videos just doing a bunch of seemingly meaningless stuff. It's all building up to the things that we're doing now, making things a lot easier. So this will work. This will save it as long as we don't get any errors, as long as I didn't miss anything. The last thing we want to do is, because we're just going to be sitting there after we save it, is we want to return to the main menu. And I want to pass this in, or set it as a method in the actual game window, because game window, we may need to return to the main menu with other methods. So let's just come to the bottom here, and we're just going to create sort of a public void return to main menu. And this is going to essentially do everything we need to do to return to the main menu regardless of where we are. So the first thing I want to do is say toggle AutoCam and make sure it's set to false. So if it's already false, it's good. If it's not, it'll set it this way. It's not trying to refer to the player, because if we scroll up here, the AutoCam is checking the player stuff, and player is going to be set to null, and because there's not going to be a player anymore. So we're going to say this.camera equals vector2.0. One thing to note here with the camera is, even if we didn't do this, our GUI would be affixed to the center of our screen, so we don't need to do this. However, since certain things, like let's say we load a level, it's going to load at 0. AutoCam may move back to the player, but I'm not really sure. It's safer to do this because we're gonna, things start back at the 0 anyway. Someone doesn't create a level at 5,000, 5,000. They create a level starting at 0, 0. So next thing we want to do is clear out our dynamic OBJs. Dot clear, and we're just going to clear out our list. So input handlers dot clear. We don't need the player to exist anymore, or anything else handling it. Active menus dot clear. Typically we should only have one, but if we have multiple, we need to clear them all. Player equals null. And that should be it. Let's scroll back up and just make sure there's nothing else. Let's see here. So these are all fine. Dynamic OBJs, input handlers. We don't need to clear keys down because, input handlers is clear and it still needs to register that. It's still dynamically handling that. Active menus needs to be cleared. Player needs to be cleared. Everything else can stay the way it is. Load level map is something that is handled by itself. So that's pretty much it right now. If we ever need to add more stuff here, we can. And then since we're returning to the main menu, we say new main menu. And we'll say this. And it's giving us an error because it doesn't like that we have an ambiguous reference between windows.forms.main menu. So what we can do, there's a couple things you can do. We can say main menu equals this. Depending on how you want to do it, since it's our main menu and I don't intend on using the forms.main menu, I'm going to say using main menu equals this and just completely ignore the forms version. So now we can go back to our game save manager, no, not our game save manager, our game menu, and say this.game.return to main menu. And we don't need to do anything else because it's going to automatically get rid of this. We don't need to say, hey, deregister me. I mean, we could. It's going to deregister anyway, basically. So, but this will clear it out for us. So that clears everything and then tells us, hey, we're at the main menu. Start over, essentially. Uh, and I think that's it, actually. Let's go ahead and give this a check out. We're going to start it. I'm going to place down a couple blocks, and then we're going to take a look and see if the file exists. So go ahead and create, and I'm going to place just enough of a platform. We'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and let's see what happens if we hit save and exit. Okay, send me back to the main menu. No errors. I assumed I may have missed something, but I guess not. Play again, and okay. I'm not going to hit save and exit this time because I don't want to have another file. Instead, I want to close out of this, and I want to go in here. So I didn't go back in. Let's see. Let's refresh. Oh, here it is. And it created it with 1 kilobyte. And okay. So let's see. I want to break this down because it's got like, so we got location 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there's 5. It just seems a lot more like it is. So it stores all that information as just a JSON data. There's no like encryption or security or anything. We could probably do that, but I don't really feel like it. It's like too much work for the purpose of this. Like we're not doing an encryption thing. And in fact, I just, did that whole tutorial on how to decrypt and encrypt save files from the other game. We could literally use the logic from there to encrypt and decrypt our own save files. So I'm not going to do that here. We're just going to stick with what we got, and it seems to be working. So theoretically, we could leave this alone. I'm not going to save the changes. And when we come back in the next video, we could create UI to load from the save file. The only reason I'm doing that in this video is because I want to create a scrollable list to load from. However, that's complicated. So I'm trying to see if maybe we can just maybe do something different. I'm not sure. We'll see. Excuse me. In the meantime, that is it for today. We've got everything we wanted to do. We're getting pretty close to just kind of moving into more like quality of life things, adding more stuff. Like right now, we've just got blocks, and we'll probably start adding things like the player spawn, hazards, and stuff like that. We've got a lot of functionality done. So additions are the direction we're headed. So anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day.